All right, it is St. Patrick's Day 2017, about 1 in the afternoon, and I just finished watching the second episode of Marvel's Iron Fist. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you probably saw my rant yesterday after watching the first episode, or rather, 11 hours ago, 1 a.m. today, technically. Uh, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. Uh, this second episode gets a little better. It's bad, and it's not good at all, but it was watchable. The other one was, the last episode was painful to watch. This one had some things that had me interested. Uh, this episode, so I'm just gonna go straight into breaking down this episode just bit by bit. So if you're planning to watch it, maybe watch it before watching this. Uh, if you don't care, you don't care. This episode starts out with Danny waking up in the mental hospital that he's been put in by Ward Meacham and Joy. I finally got her name down. It's Joy, not Jill. I threw out. I just knew it was a J name. I couldn't remember. Uh, he gets thrown into that mental hospital, and a lot of it's just redundant. Him sitting in the mental hospital, just saying, "I am Danny Rand. I woke up. I was in the plane crash, and I'm Danny Rand." And they're like, "No, you're not." And it's just back and forth, and it's boring for most of it. Um, at a certain point, he manages to get one of his inmates to get him out of his straps on the bed and call somebody. And so he calls Colleen Wynn. And I will say right now, any moment in this episode where Colleen Wynn is on screen, I'm interested for the most part. She's one of the only characters in this show so far that feels like a complete real person to me. So they call her, and he's like, I need your help. And then she rightfully so is like, look, I hardly know you. I don't know how I can help you. What's going on? And he tells her what's going on. And then she's like, it sounds like you're in trouble, but I don't know what I can do. And she hangs up. He's like, no, and then Ward Meacham and his father apparently have cameras all throughout the mental hospital that they put him in, and they were watching him, and they saw that he reached out to Colin. By the way, Ward Meacham and his dad, Ward Meacham more so than his dad, but both of them are still remain the most boring, lifeless Marvel villains ever. Marvel obviously already has a problem with creating interesting villains. This is their worst that I have seen by far. I can't, and a large part of it just comes from their performances. I can't take Ward Meacham seriously. Every line he delivers, he doesn't sound like he means it at all. Anyway, so from there, the first Ward Meacham's father comes to Danny, and it's in this weird, Danny's just been drugged at this point, and he comes in the middle of the night and sits on his bed and asks him a bunch of questions about where he's been. And it was a really weird scene, but we get some information from Danny from here about Kunlun, where he was training the alternate dimension and becoming the Iron Fist. We get a little bit from him about that. And then we get Ward Meacham comes to Colleen Wynn to ask her if she can sign some papers saying that Danny is dangerous. And once again, this scene is exactly. I'm seeing Ward Meacham, and I don't feel like he's a real person, and he's throwing me off. And then Colleen Wynn feels like a real character to me, and she's asking real questions that a person would ask, and asking what his motives are, what Danny's motives would be, why would he be dangerous, what's going on. And then he offers her a ton of money for her dojo if she'll sign his papers. And so that she then goes to Danny and asks him what's going on, and Danny tells her, and she just kind of goes, okay. and then leaves. And around that same time, Danny gets like a package delivered from Joy with a bunch of M&Ms, and there's apparently, as we find out a few minutes later, there's an inside thing with them where they never eat the brown M&Ms. So he takes out all the brown M&Ms and puts the other ones back, and asks Colleen while she's there to take it back to Joy. So Colleen takes it back to Joy. Joy pours them out and starts like practically crying. Because the brown M&Ms are gone, she knows this must be Danny. And she tells Ward that, and then Ward, of course, does the stoic, like, what? No, it's not him. This is crazy. And she's like, no, this absolutely has to be Danny. We need to get him out of here. And she's like, no, we can't do that now. We can't. And anyway, and so then, when Colleen, at the same time that Colleen came to give her the M&M, she said she's not signing the papers. She leaves, and then right at the end of the episode, Ward calls his dad, I think his dad calls Ward, and is like, I need to move him to this place we have in Long Island, and we need to watch him. He could be dangerous, and he could also be useful to us. And then Ward literally delivers the line, Dad, this is just crazy. We can't do that. And so then, his dad doesn't listen to him, obviously, but Ward doesn't listen to his dad either. He calls the hospital and has some of the guys that he's in with there, come sit in a room and beat up Danny, or rather stand in a room and beat up Danny. And then Danny finally, like, he focuses his chi or something, and you see his fist glow beneath the straitjacket, and then he, like, breaks out of the straitjacket and beats them all up, and then he leaves the room, and he starts running around the halls, and then he sees the inmate for a second, that let him out earlier, and that inmate watches him as he does a running leap and punches through one of the doors with his glowing fist. And then he looks around for a minute, music picks up, and it like kind of zooms out like up over him as he just runs off, and then cut to credits. So yeah, this got better. From last, I was so concerned last night when I was watching the first episode. I'm not as freaked out about this now, but it's such a step down. It deserves its like 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. It really does. I hope it gets better. I'm really excited to see what happens to the series when Claire Temple's character gets involved, which I'm sure it won't be till at least halfway through the season. But I'm excited for that because she's always great. I'm excited to see more Colleen win. I'm excited to see more of Danny fighting with the glow fists and doing cool stuff, because there's been almost none of that so far. And from what I've heard of reviews, apparently there won't be till at least like the 7th episode. So yeah, if you're a Marvel fan already, and you want to keep up with the continuity and all that, and you're wondering if this is worth it, I think the answer is yes, but you will have to sit through some garbage. And if you can't do that, I understand, and this won't be for you, because there's definitely some garbage you have to sit through. So anyway, I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to do a couple things, and then I might watch a 3rd episode and post something about that before I leave to do stuff tonight, or I might post it tomorrow. Either way, see you guys.